Oh hell, come to my side. Oh hell, come to my side. Embrace me. The smell of blood, I would die for it. Oh, the smell of blood intoxicates me. In hell's embrace, a flood of memories and tranquility. The night will have cheap drinks to drink again until dawn destroys the feeling darkness. Oh hell, my home. Oh hell, my father. Oh hell, my mother. Oh hell, my life. Oh hell. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is a poem to the beginning of the manga that we're going to be getting into today. Panorama of Hell. I stumbled across this manga completely by accident because I had found out about its creator, Hideshi Hino, who has a very interesting story, which I decided to dive in before actually reading the manga, and I'll get into more of it at the end. But it is honestly kind of crazy on how well his story correlates with this story that he comes up with. Also, this was made in 1982. This is the oldest manga, or at least one of the oldest manga I've read. I don't know if Book of Human Insects is older than this, but this is one of the oldest. So I'm very excited to be recording this video because I haven't read anything like this. This is a very good depiction of everything that happened during the bombing of Hiroshima, which is what a lot of this is based off of. And for me personally, I think this is probably the best depiction of hell I've ever read, and probably there ever will be, because it's really cool and very creative. It's very creative as well. Anyway, if you liked the video, then give your thoughts about the story in the comments below, because I'm very curious to see what you guys' theories are about this, because I have a lot of theories, but a lot of them could be wrong. So hearing from others could be pretty nice. Anyway, let's get into this. Before I get into the actual manga itself, I will warn you, and this is a very extreme warning. This manga is gruesome, very inappropriate, very 18 plus. So with that being said, if you do not like things like animal abuse, gore, child abuse, domestic abuse, a lot of abuse, pretty much every version of abuse that you can probably think of. If you're not comfortable with that, please do not watch this video and go watch another video of mine or someone else's. The manga starts off showing the main character, who I'm going to be calling the painter. He says, "I'm a painter obsessed with the color of blood." We cut to him sitting down in his art room in front of a canvas. The room is covered with other paintings. He then tells us that he blacked out the windows of his studio and that he creates bloody hell paintings in his sunless room. We see one of his paintings, and then we see him burning the tip of his finger. The most beautiful thing in the world is blood, the color of blood and everything. Here, look, I have cuts and gashes all over my body. The cuts from my own flesh I let gush out into this brazen, and I use it for my paintings. He then drips a paintbrush into the blood-filled brazen and begins to paint with it. He calls the blood beautiful and says how the blood brings out the images. He shows a large painting and says it will be his life's work, and he calls it the Panorama of Hell and says it will depict the end. To be honest, I think this might actually be his life's work. I mean, if you're making yourself bleed that much, dog, you only have so much blood. You're not gonna make it. He then explains for his masterpiece that he drinks hydrochloric acid and vomits up the blood clots every morning. It isn't finished yet. It's gonna be a breakthrough in technique, and the whole thing will be black and white except for those that are blood. He then sits down and wants to tell us about his other hell paintings. The first painting is the guillotine. Chapter 1. The guillotine. The chapter starts off with us outside of his house looking at the guillotine. We see that a guy's head is getting ready to be severed, and the blade is already covered in holy water. There's a guy on a tower banging on a drum, and he yells, "First head." Then the poor soul's head is severed as fireworks are shot off in the back, signaling the execution. We see two more heads are being severed off, and they land in a large hamper. The heads are filled into a train car, and the sounds of screeching fireworks, the shrieks of the condemned, and the crushing of the guillotine's blade continues throughout the night. The heads are then shipped off into a train, leaving a trail of blood in its tracks, while the soil sucks up all of the blood, making flowers bloom. And from these flowers, fruit spawn, and the painter says, "These are fruits of Hell. It is said that whoever eats them will go mad, but I've always wanted to enter a world of madness by eating one of those fruits. End of chapter 1. After that, if you still want to continue, then come on. Might as well at this point. Chapter 2, The Bottomless River of Hell. This short chapter starts off with the painter moving on to the next painting of his collection, called The Bottomless River of Hell. We see the river of hell where no one knows how deep it can go. The water is stained with red from the blood running off of the tracks. The river is a never-ending stream of human animal carcasses and garbage that no one knows where it all comes from. We then see a frog eating the garbage like every other creature within the river. The frog is then eaten by a fish, then the animals devour one another. That's how they survive, the painter says. Now this is a painting of the crematorium next door. The rumbling of its big incinerator sounds as if it was coming from inside the earth. That is the end of chapter 2. Chapter 3. The Crematorium of Headless Corpses. The chapter opens up with us seeing smokestacks burning. The headless corpses of the guillotine are burned in the crematorium, he says. We then see workers sliding the corpses down an underground pipeline that connects directly to the guillotine. They turn it on and the bodies begin to burn. The sight of fresh corpses boiling is remarkable, the painter explains. Some of them stand up just for them to fall with twisted and bent limbs like dancing shrimp and squid. Sometimes the painter asks if he can watch the bodies burn through a porthole. A worker then asks him, "You really like it, huh?" I won't lie, I feel a little bad for these workers. Imagine having to deal with this dude every single day. Can I see them burn? No, you need help. He tells him it's exciting. The smell of burning flesh, blistered red skin, and the crumbling of bones. We then see a large pile of bodies burning. That is the end of chapter 3. Chapter 4, The Graveyard of Executed Prisoners. The chapter starts off with the painter looking out of his window, telling us that the crematorium burns year-round. So, of course, the stench of burning flesh fills the neighborhood, he says as he closes the window. He now wants to show us the graveyard. He opens another window and we see a large field with wooden crosses with animal heads staked on top of them. We then see a moon that drips blood onto the graveyard that makes the corpses rise from the dead. We then see the dead bodies are headless, but they can clearly speak. They wonder where their heads are. They then grab the animal heads and then realize that these are not theirs. The painter says that he can watch this through his window all night. He then closes the window and says he often strolls around these places and they inspire him with the images of hell he needs. He then comes up with the idea to show us his prized collection of unusual things he has gathered around his travels. We then see a wall of jars that are filled with formaldehyde. They preserve twisted stuff from earlier, like the head from the guillotines, fish from the river, and pigs' heads from the graveyard. He then asked us, have we seen anything like this beautiful collection? Brother, I don't know who the heck you're talking to, but you're not talking to me. You're not talking to me. I mean, I collect manga. You know, if you want to consider that to be weird and beautiful, like, go ahead, but not this. I ain't never seen anything like this before. The chapter then ends. So, as you probably heard from the poem in the very beginning of the video, you can probably see how this so far can correlate with the poem. I didn't really explain much of it in the beginning, but I'll explain a little bit of it now. While I was starting to read this manga, I was curious on what the poem was about, and apparently, long story short, the poem is about how someone who's grown up in hell for so long becomes comfortable with this hell. Meaning, pretty much like if you grow up in an environment and you're comfortable in that environment, you're not gonna want to leave. There's a lot of evidence of that in a lot of places. But as we can see, he's clearly comfortable with where he lives because he's showing us all these paintings and he doesn't really seem to be weirded out by it. He doesn't seem to feel any type of sympathy for anything that's going on around him. So clearly he's comfortable with where he's at, which I find that really interesting because I've never seen it before. I've never seen it done before in a manga. I don't read books because I don't have the patience for them, but I've never seen it done
anywhere else in fiction. And that's what made me want to keep reading more. I'm telling you, it only goes up from here. Unless you don't like what I warned you about earlier, then it goes down. It goes way down, like down there to the ground. Chapter 5. The Dream Crazy Boy. The chapter starts off with the painter telling us that he wants to show us the paintings of his family, and he'll start off with his kids. But then his daughter enters the room. She laughs and says, "Daddy, could you look at my drawing?" He then takes the drawing, and it's a drawing of a man stabbing another person, telling him to give him food. The painter then tells her that she did very well. She says, "Really?" And he replies with, "Oh yes, absolutely." She then runs off telling him that her next drawing is going to be better. "That's my daughter. Her name is Crazy Girl. I guess she takes after me." You think? You really think? Hey, normally it's like father like son. Who said it couldn't be like daughter like father? Well, no, I got that backward. Who's to say it couldn't be father like daughter? No one said it couldn't be. She plays alone in her room, sketching rotten kitten heads and dead puppies that she's gathered from Hell River. She even collects books and weird comic artists. She also uses shadow puppets to put on a show for her little brother. Her brother goes by the name Crazy Boy, and unlike his sister, he likes to get out more. He runs around screaming his head off. We see him in the river yelling at dead dogs. He also shoots a frog, killing it. He also toys around in the graveyard, taking heads off the crosses and kicking them, even sometimes sneaking into the slaughterhouse, taking eyes from the pig heads and licking them like they're lollipops. Crazy Boy then appears in the painter's room, and he tells him they're mounting a panda head in the graveyard and he wants to swap it so he can put into his dad's collection. The painter is very happy. So happy, in fact, he picks up his son and begins to lick him. The daughter then comes in and says she wants to get attention too. So he says, "Sure," and starts to lick her as well. Family bonding. You just gotta love it. No, you don't. If your family bonding is licking each other, I'm not judging in any way, shape, or form.
To be honest, I don't know why I said I'm not trying to judge. I'm 100% judging in this part.
But I do think you probably need to get therapy. I think that whole family just needs therapy. He then tells us a story about how Crazy Boy ended up with a crow's egg and was about to eat the embryo till him and his sister started to fight and scratching at each other. He then assures us that they get along very well as they watch heads being cut off from the guillotine and they sing a song. And to be real, I don't know how the heck this man ends up with kids. I don't know who the heck would want to be around that, but hell, to each their own. But in this chapter, we get to see who gave this man children in the first place. He somehow has a wife. I don't know how. Chapter 6. Hell Tavern. He's getting ready to show us the painting of his wife, but she ends up coming into the frame and tells him that she's going to open the place up and please put the kids to bed. We then find out what she means by opening the place up because she runs her own tavern called the Hell Tavern. Her only customers are ghosts from the graveyard. "What would you like for an appetizer?" she asks the headless bodies who can somehow speak, and one of them asks for their hand. Then she licks the knife and goes to cut off the headless corpse's hand. The other corpses are cheering while she licks the blood from the hand. She then asks, "How would you like it?" They say, "Marinated." Then the others ask for their limbs to be fried, asashimi, and even one of them asks for their own ankle. We then see her face that looks a little too familiar from earlier. Then we cut to her finishing the food, but the corpses realize that they don't have mouths. So how are you talking? Make it make sense. Well, most of the stuff in this manga doesn't make sense in a sense, if you get what I mean. "Poor thing, that's so sad," she says, as she holds the knife up to her face. She then stabs their necks, cutting a mouth open. They seem to be pretty happy, so they go on to eat their food, and they also seem to pretty much enjoy it because they're salivating everywhere. Apparently the limbs will grow back overnight, so they can just come back the next day. That's a smart business idea, because like you have reoccurring customers, coming in. You have like a flow, like a whole flow going on. I don't know what this is. We then see that the corpses seem to be having an amazing time that carries on throughout the entire night. And that is the end of chapter 6. I don't know why, but this chapter feels a little wholesome. I know it's not wholesome, but it just felt a little wholesome compared to everything else beforehand. But this is just a calm before the storm. We're now getting into a 3-part painting called The 3 Generations of Tattoos. Part 1. The Snake Man. We begin with the painter introducing his grandfather. He was a Yakuza member, and he had a large tattoo on his back of a snake, and they called him the Snake Man. We see him sitting down gambling with other guys. According to the painter, gambling was his grandfather's life, so he only came home for summer festivals and New Year's Day. My father told me how he and his sister used to go up and meet their grandfather at the snow pass. Whenever he'd come back from winning streak, he would come back home with large trunks on his back. The large trunk would have presents for his family, and when they were done, he'd show them a mass amount of money at the bottom. We then see the two kids look down on it, and they look absolutely amazed. Now we'll have a nice New Year's, his grandfather says. His wife then comes in and asks, how long will you be staying this time? And for some reason, she looks a little scared. I wonder why. We'll see. We then find out that when he comes back from a lost, he comes back looking like a sleepwalker and looking like a bum. Naturally, the family was very poor, and the grandmother worked in the fields and could barely support them at all. Warning. I know I gave one in the beginning, but I'm gonna do this throughout the rest of the manga from now on, because after those 4 chapters, the manga takes a very darker turn, a much darker turn. So I will be giving these warnings throughout the rest of the video. Whenever he'd come back after a losing streak, he'd get drunk and start beating on the grandmother. And as time went on, it got worse and worse. We then see the grandpa and the grandmother in the room. My guts are filled with dice, like rotten maggots, he says, as the grandmother is tied down. He then grabs her hair and starts to beat her, yelling, "You hate me." She cries back, "I don't hate you." He then responds with, "If you mean it, then you'll sacrifice everything for me." She agrees, and we see the kids are watching from the door. My father and his sister began to hate him more and more, the painter explains. We then cut to a snowy night. The grandfather is walking till a man comes yelling, "Snake Man, you're dead meat." The man then strikes him, cutting him open and ripping off his shirt, screaming, "Snake Man." The grandfather falls to the ground, bleeding, but then stands back up, laughing. The men are confused on how he's standing. He then tells them, "I am the Snake Man. I will not be killed by you." He then cuts his own belly open, and then dice start to fall out. Then the men are even more freaked out by seeing him lick the knife and says, "I've always wanted to die in the snow, covered in blood." Then thousands of dice start shooting out of his body. He grabs a handful of them and stuffs it in his mouth. Loving the taste of it, he then falls back down with the dice in his hands, bleeding out. The following spring, a pervert brutally murdered my grandmother, he says, as we see that her legs are sticking out of the ground. The 2 kids cry out for their mom, but they unfortunately become orphans. The chapter ends with him introducing his father, who has a bat on his back. Part 2. The Crimson Bat. The chapter starts off with showing his father's back, and just like his grandfather, he would get drunk as well. He would always mumble to himself, and then we see a younger version of the painter is watching his dad. We then get into the dad's story. His father worked for a family that had this son that went mad from studying. Ain't that the truth? I'm telling you. Listen, well, let me tell you, college. Oh, I didn't study I did not study at all in high school, by the way. I did not study at all in high school. College, algebra, math classes in general, biology. I'm taking biology in the summer right now. I don't like it. I like the professor, but I don't like the class. I don't like the fact that I have to study. I don't like studying. I swear I would drive myself mad studying. His father's main job was to feed the mad son, but we see that the son isn't necessarily the cleanest person alive. "I don't want this anymore. You eat it," the mad son demands. "Hurry up and eat it, or someone's gonna come." The son then threatens to bash him upside the head with a hammer if he didn't eat it, because the son would get in trouble if he didn't finish his food. So he forced the father to eat it every single day. The father is clearly scared while the son looks down on him. But then one day, the mad son threw up his food and tried to force the father to eat it by slamming him on the ground and hitting him. The father then sees the opportunity to grab a hammer and smashes the mad son's face in over his head, over and over again. Understandably so, the father had to leave from the job after the death of the mad son, which no one really seemed to care about in the first place. He then tried to go back to his sister, but his sister unfortunately passed away from pneumonia, from being worked so hard. The father then cries out for his sister, and not long after his sister's death, he becomes a vagabond. He then realizes that he's following in his grandfather's footsteps, so to avoid that, he sailed to Manchuria, where he found a wife and worked like a slave. But then his father started a pig farm, which eventually took off, so he could live a normal life. But then the war between Japan and China began, and he was drafted to the war. He told his wife to look after things, and then him and others started killing people in the nightmarish war because they believed that if they did it, then the war would end faster, so he could return home to his normal life. But then the mushroom cloud blew it all up. Now I realize when we had it coming, the father says. When it came time to leave Manchuria was a living hell. On our long journey back to Japan, my wife went completely out of her mind. The wheel of karma is eternal. Yeah, this world is hell, he says, drinking with alcohol dripping from his mouth. He then sees the young painter and tells him that he hates him, and then he grabs him by the hair and starts to beat him violently while yelling, "Dumb kid, you've been staring at me with those eyes since the day you were born. Bastard, you aren't a human child. You are a demon." While I was reading this part specifically pissed me off so much. it well, it's nothing to laugh at, but like it just pissed me off because how are you gonna do that to your own child? Like that's so messed up. Thankfully I have a loving father. I know unfortunately some people don't. But seeing this in the manga pissed me off so much. If I ever see this happen in public, I kid you not, I'm probably gonna go to jail. If you're willing to sit there and watch your child get beat, then you're a part of the problem. Whenever his father would beat him, the young painter would see a large crimson bat staring over him, laughing. Around that time, the young painter's father worked at a slaughterhouse. Animal cruelty warning. One summer day, he was brutally killing pigs under the blazing sun. The pig's blood making him look like something from the depths of hell. They then show him smashing a pig's head in. But at that exact moment, the young painter, while watching his dad killing pigs, he sees the crimson bat laughing and dancing. And then on another snowy day, he sees his dad bloated and floating down the Hell River with the crimson bat gone. Till he sees the crimson bat hanging from a power line, he then throws a snowball and it flies away, never seeing it ever again. Part 3. The Rising Dragon. The chapter then starts off with the painter showing us his brother. He says, "This is a painting of my younger brother. He is another tattooed alcoholic, or rather, I'd say he was a tattooed alcoholic. He would sit and drink on his sake bottle, leaning over the same table just like his dad did. As a youth, he was a juvenile delinquent who fought all the time. We then see the brother beating up a dude, showing no mercy and almost beating him half to death. Whenever he was drinking, he would get more violent, and we see him at a party smashing a bottle over someone's head. And every night, he would get drunk and start fighting like a madman. And as the blood showered over him, he'd tremble joyfully as he licked the bottle. What's with this family and licking stuff? Like, they love licking things. Like, the painter likes licking his children. His wife likes licking the knives. Grandfather likes licking dice. But one day, just like our father, he was found almost dead, buried in the snow beside Hell River. His skull was cracked open and his blood dyed the snow scarlet. Then we see that he was rushed to the hospital and in the bed with tubes poking into his body. He only woke up once. The painter says, "It's me. Do you know who I am?" His brother says, "Brother, I'm not kidding, you know. I know what you want to say, but don't. Just forgive me. Please forgive me." And then that was his last words before slipping into his coma. The painter is clearly devastated, and then he says that he was so kind to him when they were children. Whenever their father would beat on the young painter, his brother would always come in and save him. So he just got beaten up instead. While all the young painter could do was just watch. Even when the neighborhood bullies would come and bully him, he'd still come to stop them. To him, it's always felt like his brother got beaten up instead of him, and he felt helpless, only able to watch and keep watching. And around this time, he began to draw dead puppies and cats' heads from Hell River in his room. We then see that his brother one day walked into his room, telling him, "Dad's gonna beat you if he finds you at this again." He then calls his drawings gross, but tells him that he can draw pretty well and you could really be a great artist one day. The painter appreciates his brother's words because he spoke to him like a real adult. Sometimes the young painter would see his brother crying and he'd just secretly watch him. The painter questions why such a good child would become such a fighting freak, like he was fighting something invisible. What was going on with you? I can't understand. He then starts to blame himself for being withdrawn and couldn't come out of his shell. All he could do was paint. He starts to scream out in frustration and rips his hair out as well while yelling some more. We then cut to his brother in his room, who soon after he was released in the hospital, he just became a ball of flesh. And the only thing that remained is the rising dragon tattoo. He then tells us that he wants to show us a portrait of his mother. He calls her a mad woman. And that is the end of the tattoo trilogy. Wow. Yeah, that's a brutal arc. That's a very, very, very brutal arc. His father and grandfather died in the snow, and his brother was unconscious in the snow. And I think the reason why it snows so much in this story is because I think that's supposed to simulate hell. Now, I could be wrong about this. I am not well educated when it comes to the Bible, okay? But I did hear somewhere that it that in the Bible hell is depicted as a very cold place. So maybe that's why it snows so much and maybe that's why they died in the snow. Possibly. Someone educate me on that in the comments. I would really like to know your theories on that. Okay, hello. Editor me here. I would like to point out something that the painter says in the story going over his brother. The painter questions why his brother became such a fighting freak, and throughout the brother's story, we see that the brother pretty much was constantly abused, just like the painter was, but sometimes worse, because he would get beat up all the time. Let's look at a serial killer, very well-known serial killer, Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was domestically abused in his childhood, and I think it was by his mother or some other female family member. And what did Ted Bundy do? He was killing women that looked like that relative. When you were abused, when you were a kid, you know, you tend to hate that person that abused you. And when you grow up not knowing how to cope, you take what you learned as a kid, because that's how you learned how to cope with things, and you put it out into the world onto other people. So that's what I think happened with the brother. And the reason why he became such a fighting freak is because he was constantly getting beat up by his dad because of the painter and his cowardness, which I honestly, actually, no, I won't call it cowardness. I would just say the painter being a scared child. Chapter 8. The Mad Woman. The chapter begins with the mother entering the young brother's room. Poor boy, you're having a bad night. What's wrong, my child? Are you in great pain? She says, holding a pig's head with maggots spilling out of it. She hasn't been right in the head since I was a baby. We then see the young painter yet again, spying on his mother while she sings a song looking at the pig's head. She then turns back and says, who's spying on me? He explains that his mother was very kind to him when he was a baby. We then see that she looks down on him and rips his shirt off and licks her lips. Child abuse warning, by the way. She then pulls his hair out and starts to beat him worse than his father. She then pins him down on the ground and starts to stab him in the back multiple times. We see that she is over him and he is pinned down to the ground with ropes around his neck as she pulls on it. He described it as it felt like it would go on forever. He looks at her in fear while her mouth is watering. His brother then comes in and stops her like he did with his father. But when his brother calmed him down, she said, what is this place? Am I in hell? We then come back to the present day while the painter is spying on her with his pile of a flesh brother in her hands. She says, who are you? And then throws him to the ground and says, you're not my son. The pile of flesh then begins to cry. She tells him to shut up. This is my only son, as she looks at the pig's head. She then whips the pile of flesh, calling him a demon, and he'll get what he deserves. The children then jump in, stopping her from hitting their uncle. She then seems to be confused yet again, and she asks, where is she? Is this hell? The painter tells her, sure, mother, this is hell. He then closes the door, and the mother tells the kids, did you hear that? This is hell. She then begins to laugh and looks like a demon herself. Then, the kids included, begin to dance. The chapter ends with the painter telling us, I've seen images of hell since I was in my mother's womb. End of chapter 8. Chapter 9. The Lost Empire. This chapter starts off with us looking at a large mushroom cloud. On August 6, 1945, Gabanta's empire from hell appeared in the sky over Hiroshima. With a flash and a tremendous roar, it sucked up all the blood of hundreds and thousands. Then, from inside the flash, a beam swept over Korea to Manchuria. The painter's mother was hit by the beam, and from that, the fetus of the painter began to come to life and watched the bloody hell starting to happen outside and an invasion from Russian armies. Once the Japanese also surrendered, the Chinese began to get revenge as we see people being hanged. His father was going to be a victim, but a Chinese friend stopped it last minute. Then in 1946, the painter was born unwanted. It's horrible. What is this child? The grandmother says. She eventually tells them that they should kill him, but the parents said no. 9 months later, the parents carried him in the line of refugees retreating to Japan. Most didn't survive the trip. They either died from the cold or hunger. The world is a living hell, utter chaos, terrifying to behold. It's like an opening of Pandora's box, turned to snow crimson as it falls from the black sky, and all around hellflowers blossoming. The wheel of karma spins around, spreading misfortune, killing my brothers and sisters. That is my sin. Crying out for forgiveness, my screams echo to the heavens. All is disaster and red snow, saddening. We cut to the baby painter on the ground, licking up a dead person's blood and calling it yummy. His mom picks him up, and then some guy calls the baby a demon. And then his dad tells him we should just kill him. Please shut up. Shut up, please. You do not deserve to talk. You do not deserve to talk. You really do not deserve to talk here. Like, you already pissed me off from the last time, and now you're just pissing me off more knowing what happened before all that. The father says I've tried to love him, but he's not a normal baby. So there are plenty of people nowadays that aren't normal, and they're still around. So why the heck is this such an exception? Yes, the baby is weird, but I'm not gonna get rid of him because of it. The mother then says, "What are you saying? You're crazy. This is our baby. I'm not like those other mothers. I'll take him back to Japan." So they kept on going, where they were attacked by starvation in the cold, and they were also attacked by others along the way. One day they were unfortunately attacked, and the mother got hit on the side of the head, and that is what drove her mad, seeing her own blood. I guess fear and fatigue finally broke her, the painter says. While she holds him, he can see around the sunset the fall of the Manchurian Empire and hear the roar of desecration. The chapter ends with him saying, "O Manchurian, lost empire forever gone. Lord of hell, drenched in blood, never to return. It has retreated to the realm of darkness at the edges of the world. Mythical content, never again to be treaded upon. It was my homeland. I was born the son of a defeated invader of that country of hell. Born the son of a hell demon. Hell, that is my home." Again, going back to the poem, it ties in here as well. Also, I think that this is the part of the story that connects to, forgot his name, 1 second, Hideshi Hino. Why do I say that? Hideshi Hino, while I was doing my research on this, was born 1946. When was the painter born? 1946. He was also a refugee in the middle of things that were going on in Japan and China, and he was almost killed. I feel like that message at the end of the chapter was definitely Hideshi Hino telling us his feelings about him having to leave his home and almost getting killed in the middle of the whole refugee migration and all that. It's also a little emotional as well because, well, one, he's still alive, by the way. I didn't know he was alive. He's still alive. That's crazy. He's 80 years old. It's honestly kind of crazy, knowing that someone went through this and they're still alive today that has this knowledge in their head, and having them write out this message in a manga. It could be a coping mechanism, which I find very interesting because I like psychology, and I also took a psychology class in college. We were reading about coping mechanisms, and one of those coping mechanisms was pretty much writing down your feelings, writing down your thoughts. And I think that helps a lot. I mean, because I've done it before. So this probably could have been therapy for Hino. But then again, I'm also just talking. I'm reading this story. I don't know the 100% of anything. Moving on. Chapter 10, Dreams of a Young Painter. Right off the bat, I'm just going to throw in this. Animal cruelty warning. This chapter starts off with a young painter sitting outside cutting open a lizard. We then see that he would do more things like boil a cat, crush bugs, plucking feathers from a crow, and smashing frogs. Every day, he draw pictures of these hellish games, he called them. We then cut to something that I don't feel like I should show at all. Because even though, yes, I did show some of the other abuse scenes, this one is worse. Like, a lot worse. A lot worse. A lot worse. You get the point. So, I'm just gonna read what I have here. I'm not gonna show anything. His father and mother are being extremely abusive towards him. And according to him, this abuse became pleasure. We then cut to the husband beating on his wife. Something I should also point out is that through all this abuse and everything, he would use all of this because it was turning into pleasure. I don't know if it was because of that, but because all this abuse was happening, he was turning this abuse into paintings. But after a while, the ideas started to dry up and he stopped painting. He lies down thinking to himself, I wish that creep's house down the street would catch on fire. That would make such a good hell painting. He then gets an idea to recreate the mushroom cloud and calls it the Empire of Hell. When he finishes it, he pours blood on it, and from this blood it starts to glow a pale pink. Then he immediately gets on his knees and says, please make that creep's house down the street catch on fire and burn up. Surrounded by hell's flames, that punk and his family will suffer. Burn, burn, burn. Everything to the ground. The house, the people, everything must burn to ash. The mushroom cloud then grows brighter, and then we hear someone scream, fire. He looks outside of the window and sees that the house is on fire. He then runs over to the house, and at that moment, he discovers that he has an incredible superpower. We then see him back at his house, drawing with glee, and ever since then he used his power for his paintings. We then see newspaper articles on tragic events like a boat sinking killing 800 people or a plane crash killing 129 people. We cut back to him in present day and he says, so now you know that I've been killing people for my paintings, tens, hundreds, and thousands of people, and then ends the chapter off showing us a large canvas, calling it the Panorama of the Final Hell, while he holds a large axe in his hand, saying, but even this is not enough. Final chapter, Panorama of the Final Hell. The chapter starts off with him destroying the canvas. I wanted to paint the real hell paintings of horror never before witnessed by man, he says, staring at us with crazed eyes. All I had to do was just one more test. We then see a paper that says, Argentinian army occupies Falkland Island. British task force sent in. I've proven my power was every bit as strong in foreign countries. So my goal now is to press the button and set off all the world's nuclear weapons. He then walks into a room saying that this will be his best work and the final hell painting. He then picks up an axe and starts swinging it like a madman, destroying his collection of jars. While laughing, he even cuts a head in half while he screams, forgive me, dear loved ones. I must paint, even if it means sacrificing you. He then heads into his wife's room and says, forgive me, my darling. We get a close look at her and she looks like a doll. He then chops her up into pieces, and it's just that. She is indeed a doll. He holds her head in his hands and tells her, at least you died to my hands. His children then come and start to congratulate him, and then he picks them up as if they were puppets, and then throws them to the ground and tells them, my children, it's for your own good. He then swings the axe at them, and it shows cotton spewing out of the fake dolls' bodies. We can tell that he looks a little remorseful, but then he heads to his grandmother's room, where she is on a metal pole, and she quickly turns her body and asks, is this hell? He then replies, yes, mother, it is. Effing hell. He then chops her up, revealing her mechanical body. And finally, his brother. He uncovers his brother, and it's just a dead pig. He says, forgive me. He cuts the pig's head off. He then runs down the hallway, laughing till he's outside in the snow. He has a wide, creepy smile on his face. He then sees the red flowers of hell and he eats the fruit from them. They taste of blood, which he loves, and as he's been dreaming of. He looks up to see that there is a wall and wonders what is on the other side of the wall. In all the years I've been here, I've never seen what's on the other side of the wall. But you know what? A day like this is just right for finding out. He then throws the axe at the wall, breaking it in half, and it's revealed to see a sea of blood with a mouth opening at the end, with people drowning and suffering in it. But then something begins to swirl within the blood-covered water. It comes up spinning, and it's a lantern, and it shows the abuse between his grandfather. It changes it to his mom and dad, and then it shows his brother and children and wife. The lantern then cracks open, spilling out blood on him. He's now covered in blood and then takes a handful of it and puts it in his mouth, and then he throws it all back up. He stands back up and says, "Hell is coming now. Bones, flesh, and blood, everything will be destroyed. A moment of awesome beauty is near. The full-scale hell one has seen. It's coming, and I am the one who will paint that hell. I'll paint every last scrap of the panorama of the final hell." He raises his axe and points at the lips. "I'll paint hell over the entire face of the earth. No one on this planet will be left alive, but my hell painting will be eternal. Oh, fiery landscape, what a wonderful way for the world to end, and it will be by my hand. When will it be? I have already decided that," he says as he turns to look at the reader. Talking to me? I didn't do anything. Will it be today, tomorrow, or maybe this very second? One thing's for sure, it will come and everyone will die. Everyone except for me. I am a demon from hell. The empire of hell is my true father. So I won't die. But as he holds up the axe and yells, "You will die, and you, and you, and you, and you will die. He will die. She will die, and you will die." He's now pointing at us. Yes, us. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I put you in this situation. I'm in this situation too. Okay? So let it just go through. He then throws the axe, and we just stand still as the axe comes towards our head, ending off the manga. Wow. That is insane. This is definitely what I look for when it comes to off-putting and disturbing stuff. It has disturbing elements, but I wouldn't necessarily call this manga itself disturbing or off-putting. I would consider this manga to just be one word, and that is tragic. This is a very tragic manga going over a story of a dude who's driven mad by his own surroundings. I also think the reason why that his family, like his wife, kids, and all that, were in that lantern, and the reason why it cracked and all the blood spilled out is because I think he killed them. I really do think that he killed them. Because that dude is crazy. I also think that he's probably in a psych ward as well, because he's never been outside of the walls for however long he's been there. He's never been outside of them. There's probably a reason why you've never gone outside of them, because you're insane and you're at a psych ward. This is also around the time that people were getting sent into psych wards. I pretty much said all the stuff that I had to say throughout this video, now that I think about it. Nope, that's a lie. I got one more thing to say. And guess it's about another serial killer. Chapter 10, when the young painter is being abused by his parents. I remembered a serial killer. Not really a popular one, like, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer, or like, you know, who did I go over in the earlier? Who did I say? Ted Bundy. Yeah, was it? Yeah, Ted Bundy. Albert Fish. If you've heard of Albert Fish, then you know that his story is pretty much the same as the painters, kind of. Albert Fish, he was an orphan. He was put in, you know, the foster care system. Or no. He was put into an orphanage, and he was abused like crazy. And that abuse ended up turning into pleasure, and that ended up, you know, he ended up, you know, doing a lot of weird stuff, like taking needles and putting them up his urethra and stuff, and finding pleasure in that. And when he got older, he would play games with his children. Yes, this man had children. Same thing with the painter. I don't know how the heck the painter ended up with children. Somehow this man ended up with children as well. But yeah, he would play these so-called games with his children, and his children, and like whenever he would like lose, he would have his kids spank him with a belt. It was that weird. Like he was on that level of freakage. It's weird on how many serial killers this manga reminds me of. Like, I was not going into this expecting to be reminded of Albert Fish. Anyway, like and subscribe. Bye. This manga was good.